Welcome to The Vault, where we reveal some of the best kept secrets for success. Our show is designed to introduce you to industry professionals in TV, movies, music, sports, and business. Now, our goal is to learn from a wealth of information and use it to realize your dreams. Today's guest is a storyboard artist for film and television. He's created storyboards for feature films and has worked on commercial campaigns for Marvel, Gatorade, ESPN, and many more. Introducing Tim Longo. Hello and welcome to The Vault. Today I have Tim Longo, who is a professional storyboard artist, here today to talk to us about all the amazing things that he can do. So let's just jump right into it. I know that you were a cameraman at one point. Can you kind of talk to us about what that was like and then how you transitioned into being a storyboard artist?
As a storyboard artist, you're expected to understand kind of like in broad strokes how films are made, you know, like what a long shot is or a two shot or, you know, like simple things like that. But working on set and kind of in the front lines gave me a whole new understanding of, you know, just like building camera rigs and what cameras are capable of doing, practical senses, especially in like the indie world. So whenever I go into a meeting with the director, one of the first things I'll ask them, I'm like, oh, what kind of camera are you shooting on? Alexa, red, what kind of aspect ratio? And they're like, oh, you know what we're talking about here? So that's always fun to be able to kind of bring a little bit more and maybe even speak the language of a DP as well, and just kind of give the director, you know, more to work with and, you know, more opportunity as far as what I'm capable of bringing to the table.
So give me your workflow as a storyboard artist. You know, you were hired by a production company, and then take me from there.
Usually I'll have a meeting with the director and we won't even like talk about the actual process of working. We'll just mention what his or her vision is and, you know, like what he wants out of the storyboards. So that's how I'll usually approach a short film or a feature film for that matter. And usually what he'll do is kind of give me a couple of scenes. I'll board him out, then we'll have coffee and like meet up every few weeks and just make sure we're on the same page, because it's going to be, you know, I've worked on short films, or excuse me, I've worked on films that range from 2 weeks to as long as 4 months, where I storyboarded an entire feature film, beginning, middle, and end. Commercials are a little bit more quick in the matter because there's such quick turnaround. I'll deal with scripts, treatments, but a lot of times directors will actually have their ideas set, their shot list, and I'm just kind of there to be able to, you know, crank out boards for them, and so they can pass them along. I mean, I've worked on jobs where a director knew exactly what he wanted and would just kind of look over my shoulder and say, okay, just draw this so I can show everyone else. I've been on gigs where a director has a few ideas but is looking for someone to kind of fill in the blanks. And then I've also worked on gigs where a director was already, you know, up to his knees and he's like, I don't have time to figure this out, make it look awesome. So really based on like what I know, in this case it was a horror film, I had to know what I know about, use what I know about horror films to make, you know, scenes look scary and suspenseful. So every job has its own challenges, so it's good to have a workflow in sense like how to begin the process and, you know, understanding what the directors need.
So when you have the script here, tell me how you go about creating your shots and creating, you know, your composition and whatnot.
Well, what I like to do is I'll take a script and I will break down the story beats, so I really just get a sense of what all the actions are. So instead of like, you know, because I've had scripts that can have like 10 pages of direction, but the director like, we're going to cover this all in like 2 medium shots, so that's only gonna be like 3 or 4 panels, whereas the opposite has been true. So like what I like to do is I'll get a shot list for myself, the main story beats, and I'll rough everything out first. I'll use post-it notes because those are great in moving, like, and I'll put them up on a wall and just kind of like the way Walt Disney would with his animators, and just kind of make sure the scenes are flowing, everything's looking good visually, making sure I'm hitting all those story beats and the shots are flowing, everything flows visually. And then I'll present, you know, my roughs to the director. He'll approve them, get notes, feedback from the clients if it's commercial, and then after that I'll just tidy them up and send them off.
So I heard that you were formally trained. Can you elaborate on how you were taught by the masters?
Well, as far as formally trained, I was trained in filmmaking when I went to film school and in figure drawing, but I've actually never been formally trained in storyboarding. I mean, I've taken classes, I've read books, I've done workshops, but I'd say about 2/3 of my experience has been like on my own, trial by error, just, you know, practicing my own work, you know, getting jobs here and there and just learning a little bit at a time. The closest I've come to like professionally trained was I've taken drawing classes, figure drawing, gesture, perspective at the Animation Guild in Burbank, where they have Disney Master instructors such as Carl Ganas and Mark McDonald teach, figure drawing, gesture, and all these things which are critical to achieving an effective storyboard. Just like we would be in class and we'd have a model on stage, and Carl would say something like, "We're not copying here. We're not robots. Tell me a story how you want to." And so that's like a language I was able to adapt when I'm doing storyboards, and not instead of drawing, copying what I see or making stiff drawings, really kind of give them a little bit extra.
So who inspires you now in your industry? Like, as far as who are the people that you draw the most creative inspiration from?
Well, there's a couple different people out there. I mean, some of my favorite filmmakers, James Cameron and Quentin Tarantino. I mean, they're masters in their own way, and I'm obviously a film geek first and foremost. And as far as artist influences, I'd have to say my mentors, Jeff Errico, Tony Libator, and Alex Hilkhurst. They're all three union storyboard artists. They've worked on films collectively from Snow White and Huntsman. Tony's worked on the last 5 Fast and Furious films, all the Captain Marvel, which is coming out in a few months. Alex has worked on Argo and Unbroken, and working with a lot of high-profile directors, and they all have the career that I want to aspire to be to have, and be able to work on those big-budget action films, and really just take these like huge stories and help directors best visualize them when they're creating their films.
So what do they do that makes them so great?
Their work. My mentor Jeff was probably the best person who taught me what makes an effective storyboard, how you really want to approach a scene, like a big action scene. Like, you really want to like overboard. You don't want to just keep it basic. You want to make it really sell that energy. You really want to make feel like your boards are leaping off the page, and make them look as energetic as possible. And just between the kind of work the way their work looks like, how it has so much energy in the frame, and just the kind of jobs that they do. Obviously, the last couple Fast and Furious films are known for their car chases, and they'll have scenes where they have to figure out how they're going to go. They're driving here, then they're jumping over here. All that stuff has to be figured out when you're working on millions of dollars, with a budget.
I would think that would be like one of the hardest parts, because now with all the modeling and pre-visualization that they have, I know like the progression may be storyboard to previs, and then
and a lot of times I've spoken to Tony about this, how a lot of times now animatics are getting very popular with live action storyboarding, because it just makes it so much easier. Like he was telling me when he was working with F. Gary Gray on Fast 8, he just cranked on animatic, which takes time. I shouldn't say he cranked it out. It takes time. Showed it to F. Gary Gray, and he's like, looks great. I have no questions. And that just like things like that. Finding ways to advance the storytelling or capabilities with storyboarding, and just help the director achieve his vision, and make the crew's jobs easier.
What are your thoughts about storyboarding too much, or just letting the director organically pick their shots? Because I know that's kind of push and pull sometimes.
Yeah, that actually, I would, the way I'd answer that is, it really depends. Every job is different, and I think what makes you a stronger storyboard artist is if you can understand what's expected. Like I was saying earlier, how I've worked with jobs where a director knew exactly what he wants, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit back. I'm just going to do what he asked for. But
do you like that or no?
Well, sometimes it feels like, I'm here to do a job. So if that's what they need from me, I can draw, and I'm happy to give that to them. But at the same time, sometimes it feels like I have one hand tied behind my back, and I like that kind of creative freedom where I can bring a little bit more to the table and really kind of give them something. But at the same time, where I'm completely on my own, that can kind of get... That presents its own challenges.
It's like a middle ground.
The middle ground is fantastic, where it's like a director, him or her will have like a pretty set idea. They might even draw some stick figures for me, and then just kind of ask me. And I like to always think of myself as, or I always tell directors, I'm like, think of me as like a second set of eyes or a second director, but I don't want the credit as a director. One thing I love about storyboarding is that it's such a creative and a visually creative position, but it's so behind the scenes, and I love that. That's one of my favorite things about it.
It's very collaborative, that's what you're saying. It's just like being able to have input, from each other.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative process, but at the same time, I may never work with more than 3 people at a time. But the few people I do work, it's a very collaborative thing.
So what was the most rewarding storyboard job that you've done?
The most rewarding? Oof.
Creatively, I mean, more
I would
so,
have
yeah.
to say one of my, I mean, I'll say anytime I see a film that I've done that gets a release so I can see my name on the credits, that's always exciting. So I'd say any of those films. But if I had to pick one, I worked on a short film last year, and it was the director's first time doing a short film. And she had, it was a 15-page script. She had a couple pages of uh, sketches, like stick figures of storyboards that she had. And going back to what I was saying about the connective tissue that storyboards can bring to the table that a lot of directors may not know until they see it. She's like, I'm like, you know what, I can help you here. Like I got your idea in broad strokes. Give me a few weeks and fill in the gaps. And she was so thrilled because she's like, oh wow, this is, you've really inspired me in ways that I felt very lost as far as just like simple shots and where to connect like these shots, or like, for example, you'll have a shot list where, say for example, a guy kicks in the door and there's like 10 guys who he's about to like fight. And the script may call for like, first guy's over here, but then he leaps over here and then he ends up going off the wall and then there's a rocket launcher. Well, as a storyboard artist, you can't just go from like 1 to B to C to D. You have to be able to, like, the audience has to understand how he got from that point to the other point. So as a storyboard artist, you want to really make sure that you're understanding, okay, we'll go into a long shot, then we'll cut to a medium, and then we'll go back to a long to understand how we got from there.
Establish the space.
Exactly. So I'd say, like, there was a job, like I said, there was a film I did a year and a half ago that really kind of gave me a great satisfaction, that, working with the first time director, and I was really excited to bring her something that, she had, hadn't worked with storyboards before, and she saw the benefit of them. So
give me an example of a job that went off the rails, or like one of the biggest challenges you've had as a storyboard artist. Like, what are the things you deal with on a day-to-day?
Well, I mean, we could be here all day, and I could tell you
Just give me the short answer.
Well, I'd say probably the biggest challenge I had was one of the first feature films I worked on. They usually, with indie films, they want to storyboard the entire film, just because, the way the Coen brothers do it, they make it super easy by just storyboarding everything and then just going to shoot. Alfred Hitchcock used to do the same thing. So I worked on a 90-page indie film. This would have been about 4 years ago, and it really wasn't a challenge. As like, the director and I got along great, and we had our we were very much on the same page, but just the fact that it was a 4-month process and it was very much an endurance trial, so you just had to keep the energy going and keep all that. So I'd say that was someone that always stands out in my head. I mean, the movie was, I was very proud to be involved with it. The director and I, we loved working together, but just the whole process of just sticking with it for 4 months.
Like it's a long marathon race.
Exactly. You have to kind of don't exactly, like, conserve your energy and just kind of treat it as a marathon, not a sprint.
What's your dream project? Like, I mean, I know you kind of gave me some of it, but like, what movie, if you could do any movie, like Star Wars, Avengers, like, what would that be?
Well,
Fast 100.
Well, my ultimate goal is to become a union storyboard artist, join Local 800, which is the art directors union, and that's going to allow me to work on the big budget action films. So if I had to pick a few, I'd say anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or any of the Fast and Furiouses. My mentors worked on those films, and those I feel like those are the pinnacle when it comes to like action and just like design like these cool car chases or like these larger than life heroes. And so I'd say any of those two, it would be an honor to be involved in.
Is it because as a boy you were influenced by maybe comics or some kind of other larger, like being able to tell stories? I mean, I'm a director,
sure,
I'm a storyboard artist. Like, as a little kid, I just loved shooting and like being able to imagine myself like making a comic book movie.
Right. Well, I mean, if we're gonna go back to like my childhood, my favorite film of all time is Terminator 2. I saw that when I was 10 years old, and I just remember coming out of that thinking, every movie needs to be this good. It just like everything was just so like it was like I had never seen anything like it. And it was, I mean, shortly after that I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I didn't know in what capacity. I eventually discovered storyboarding in college. So to answer your question, the reason why I'd say Fast and Furious or Marvel is because right now where I'm at in my career, and I've been doing this, those are like the pinnacle jobs, I feel like. Currently, I mean, who knows what'll happen 10 years down the line, but I say like those are something I strive to be able to work on.
So our question, as you know, our show is called The Vault, and our main question we have for all of our guests is, what Tim Longo secrets live in the vault that you could share with our audience?
Honestly, I consider myself an open book. I I'm all about paying it forward. I would not be anywhere near where I am right now if it weren't for my mentors and people willing to share their secrets and paying it forward. So if I haven't shared anything, it's because I haven't been asked the question yet.
So what would be something that you could instill and like share with someone that you've learned? That is like the.
We could be here all day.
Let's think of this as the title to our episode.
Okay.
So what is the one driving thing that you want to let your audience know?
I would say, and this could be said for any kind of position in the film industry, whether you want to be a director or a DP or a writer, I would say that the secret, and this isn't really a secret, but if we had to call it a secret, is figure out what it is you want to do early, because that's half the battle, and then just get really good at it and let people know you exist. You got to put yourself out there, because that's how you're going to get to where you want to be.
So find out what you're most passionate about, and then just be focused.
Yeah,
and network.
Yeah, like I say, like people ask me, like my mom will send people from my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, who want to move out to LA or want to work in the film industry, in any capacity. And I always tell them the same thing. I always say, secret is, figure out what you want to do, learn as much about it as you can, get really good, trial and error, and just, network like crazy. Don't just meet prospective clients, but, meet people who do what you want to do, so you can pick their brains and understand, like what it takes to be a success in what that field is. And then also what really helped me was to set yourself short-term goals and long-term goals, and then break down those goals into tasks so you can do a little bit each day, because it's going to take you a long time where you start seeing the kind of success that you want. I mean, for me, it took a good 6 years before I really started hitting my stride and getting the clients that I wanted. So, for example, with me, my short-term goal was always to get rep by a professional storyboard agency. I've been rep by Storyboards Inc. for the last 2 years, and my long-term goal, which I haven't achieved yet, is to get into the union and work on the big budget films. So.
Well, that's in the very near future. I don't think that's going to be too much longer.
That's the plan. Thank you.
So tell us where you live on social media and online.
Well, my website, longoboards.com. That's where you can find all my work, contact information. I'm mostly active on Instagram at longoboards. I kind of treat that as my own blog. You'll see me post some stuff from past work, sketchbook stuff, even, occasional stuff, going for hikes around town and all that stuff. Just great way to get engaged with people. Let me know I exist. Like, social media these days is a fantastic tool for whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, especially for drawing. And I think that, it's such a visual medium. These are some of the postcards he gave us right here. So his work does speak for itself. It looks amazing, it's just really exciting when I see stuff like this. As a filmmaker, I'm just like, all right, we got to make something. We got to make a cool fight scene or a chase scene. Like this is the stuff that gets me excited. So anyway, with that, I really thank you so much for taking the time, coming to the vault,
Thanks
sharing
for having
your
me.
secrets with our audience, and we wish you all the best. And you will get in that union, and you will make that next Marvel movie or Fast and Furious.
Appreciate
it's happening. We know it.
Thank you.